Good evening, everyone, and welcome to WRHU's coverage of tonight's vice presidential debate. I'm Katerina Balalis.
And I'm Kate O'Brien. We're joined with Dr. Richard Himmelfarb, a Hofstra political science expert, to break down the debate. We're going to be breaking down tonight's debate. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course. So the first question we have for you tonight is, do you think the coronavirus was adequately covered in tonight's debate?
Yes, I think that you had, a pretty informative exchange about the coronavirus. Senator Harris basically said that the Trump administration is to blame for the disaster that has ensued from the coronavirus. And I thought that Vice President Pence did a pretty good job parrying those criticisms and responding and basically saying, we've done a lot. So I thought that he did a pretty good job of probably the best possible job he could have done of defending the administration's response.
And taking a look at the debate as a whole, CBS's Norah O'Donnell reported that Mike Pence interrupted Harris 10 times during the debate, which is twice as often as Harris interrupted him, according to her. Do you think there was an equal amount of time given to both candidates?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part of the question.
Do you think there was an equal amount of time given to both candidates during the debate?
You know what? It'll be interesting to see how it's measured. Who's out and who speaks more. In the first debate, one would have thought that Trump actually had more time because he was interrupting so much. But I believe that in the end, Biden actually spoke more than Trump. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know that that's a big that's really an important factor. Matter of fact, I have to admit I was frustrated that when the candidates really started to speak and to make points, the moderator would jump in and say, "Your time is up." And on the one hand, I don't want candidates abusing the rules, completely acting as if there are no rules. On the other hand, I do like the idea of letting these guys go at each other and make their points and maybe go 42 seconds over the time and then let the other person have some time to come back.
Right. And Susan Page of Chief Up for USA Today was the moderator for tonight's debate. Do you think she did a good job? Because as we all know, Chris Wallace received some negative criticism during last presidential debate. So what are your thoughts on Susan Page?
Well, I thought she did a fair job. I would give her, sort of a C plus type of job. On the one hand, or maybe a B minus. There was order. Of course, it wasn't as insane as the debate last week. But the moderator, at some level, is only as good as the debaters are about abiding by the rules. So I thought that she did a decent job. I was a little bit frustrated that she pulled some punches and really asked Pence a lot of questions that I think should have been asked of Kamala Harris. I mean, for example, it was Pence who had to bring up the issue of court packing, which is something that both Biden and Harris have evaded answering. And the fact that Page did not bring that up, this very simple, direct question about, will you pack the court if you win the election? And the fact that Pence had to bring it up kind of shows that, again, it doesn't seem like she was particularly fair to both sides. Just my opinion.
Well, branching off what you mentioned about the court, when asked about Amy Coney Barrett's Supreme Court nomination, Harris definitely expressed her disapproval, gave clear reasoning for it, but Pence kind of danced around the question and claimed Barrett would make a good leader. Do you think avoidance helped him in that situation?
Sorry, are you saying that she asked in the question about the court and court packing? I didn't quite understand what she said. You said that he evaded the question?
He evaded the question surrounding Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the court.
Okay. You're saying he did or she did? I'm sorry.
He did. Pence did.
Right. I mean, Pence did.
Yes.
I think he said what he needed to say. He said she's a strong nominee, and hey, I think I don't know that she really needs to be defended. I thought it was even more interesting that Kamala Harris really had nothing to say about Amy Coney Barrett that was critical of her, that would lead Pence to defend her in any way.
Now, going to the discussion about climate change, both candidates continuously brought up taxes when discussing the Green New Deal. Why was this, and why were they so closely connected?
Well, I mean, that's the big question with climate change is, how much, and how much is it going to cost, and who's going to pay for it? And I thought Pence was very effective there. If you'll notice, he kept mentioning the term Green New Deal. And, I think he must have said it, if you go back, probably 10 or 15 times. And I think what that really kind of shows is that people who are in the Trump camp know that is something that is damaging to Democrats. That whole idea of massive spending, massive tax increases, massive regulation is something that Americans, in fact, tend to oppose, or tend to be, at the very least, they're wary about it.
And then do a little bit of, I guess, fact checking on the debate. Why was Pence consistently claiming that the Biden administration will raise taxes on everyone when Harris continued to mention multiple times that the Biden campaign will only raise taxes on those that move $400,000? Why was there such a big discrepancy between their statements?
Well, because Harris kind of set herself up for it, because she was sloppy in first bringing up how they were going to take back the tax cut, and not specifying that it was just that they were going to take the tax cut away only for people who made more than $400,000. So she kind of walked in. Of course, Republicans always come back at the Democrats, even if they say they're only going to raise it on people who make a lot of money, and they say, you say that, but really when the bill is sent out, it's going to be sent out to a lot of middle class Americans. So she kind of set herself up for it by not specifying the first time she mentioned it that she only wanted that. Joe Biden only wants to repeal part of the tax cut, the part that is collected by wealthy people.
So now, speaking of Harris, Kay and I both noticed during the debate that Harris consistently seemed to talk to the actual American people versus just Pence or Page by looking at the camera, as well as calling on young voters under the age of 26 when talking about the Affordable Care Act, as well as those with pre-existing conditions directly. Do you think this was a smart tactic in addressing the American public, and do you think it will hit the general public as she expected to?
Well, I guess you're asking me in a way, who do I think won the debate? And, like a lot of debates, I think the debates are decided a lot more on style and appearance and how you come across, rather than the substance of your arguments. And if this debate is evaluated with those same factors, I think Pence, this is just my assessment, I think Pence clearly won the debate. He was calm, he was cool, collected, disciplined, unruffled. He was sharp. I thought that Harris came across as, abrasive and condescending. Now, is this going to affect the outcome of the election? No. Vice presidential debates tend not to determine the outcome of the election. But I think that there are a lot of people in the Republican camp tonight who are probably saying, boy, wouldn't it be great if Pence was at the top of the ticket? If Mike Pence was the person at the top of the ticket, this might be a very different election.
And I guess taking a look at another huge issue of the night, there was definitely an in-depth discussion of Breonna Taylor and the new civil rights movement that's going on. Harris herself has received a lot of criticism for certain decisions that she's made as Attorney General of California and District Attorney of San Francisco. During the debate, she brought it up as a good thing, which I know surprised me, and I'm sure surprised viewers. What are your thoughts on this? Did you expect her to bring it up in such a good light?
Her record as prosecutor in California?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, look, that's her resume. That's really the bulk of her experience. That's the stuff that she's done that is really consequential in her career of public service. So she brought it up. I was very impressed with Pence's comeback and how Pence really seems to have done his homework, and he leveled all kinds of accusations that I think left her a bit surprised. I don't think she was anticipating that he would bring it to her on those issues and on her record the way he did, and I think he did it very effectively.
Now, during that same segment, they're talking about Black Lives Matter, Breonna Taylor, the police force, so many important issues going on in our country today, and a fly lands on Pence's head. Now, this is such a key moment in the debate. Do you think that the fly, which already became such a huge meme on Twitter and all over social media in general, do you think that affected viewership and caused viewers to not completely pay attention to what the candidates were actually saying?
I think it was an amusing, sideshow. I think, how long was the fly there? I think the fly was there for about a couple minutes, and then he ultimately, I think, flew away. I think the most interesting thing about the fly is that here you are in this studio where they're being separated by plexiglass, and there's social distancing, and there's all of these precautions that are taken, and the Cleveland Clinic is consulting, and somehow a fly gets in there and sits on top of Mike Pence's head. So I think that was, surprising to me. With all the precautions that were taken, that sort of nature found its way there.
I guess one last thing on the setup of the debate. We're definitely seeing a whole different side of debates without an audience. What are your thoughts on this new style of having just the moderator, the candidates, and maybe a couple of family members in the audience? Do you think it helps the debates?
Oh, I definitely do. I don't like all of the crowds and the cheering and the screaming and the jeering and the booing. I don't think that really adds much, and I think that this is kind of a throwback to the debates that John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon had in 1960, where it was just them, just those two and the moderator or a panel of people, and a couple, in those days there were a panel of journalists, and it was just them. And I find these types of debates perfectly satisfying. I don't know if anybody else does, but
And as Susan Page mentioned at the end of the debate, the next presidential debate is going to be held next week. How exactly, considering it's going to be a town hall style type of debate, and with President Trump currently having COVID-19, if he still has it by next week, how exactly is that debate going to pan out?
I have no idea. I have no idea about the precautions. I have no idea if it's going to happen. I'm going to assume it's going to happen. I think that the takeaway from tonight is that President Trump could learn a lot from his vice president and the way Mike Pence handled this debate. If President Trump could be 75% as good as Mike Pence, I don't know that he can get back and completely close the gap between him and Biden, but I think closer. So I think that Trump has a lot to learn by Pence's style, by Pence's reasoned responses. I think that the vice president did a pretty great job tonight, so far as the Trump campaign is concerned.
And is there anything else that you'd like to add about the debate? Something you saw that you really liked, something you saw that you didn't like, or I guess an audience takeaway for it?
Well, I guess I saw, Mike Pence being, calm and cool and collected. And then on the other side, I saw Kamala Harris saying, I will not be lectured. I thought Kamala Harris kind of lost her cool at a number of points there. I'm not sure if that's going to be pivotal. I'm not sure if there are going to be people who watch this and see this differently. But I thought that Pence was much more effective in terms of communicating. And also, I just think much more, I guess you would say, likable than Kamala Harris. At the same time, this is a vice presidential debate. This is going to go out into the ether, and then ultimately, I don't think it's going to have much of an effect on the election.
All right. Well, Dr. Richard Himmelfarb, we greatly appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you so much for being here and for giving us all of your expertise on tonight's vice presidential debate. We greatly appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.